Let's dive in. This week, we're talking about the cost of ambiguity. And so, if you were with me in the last leadership wellness workshop, we talked about this a little bit. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper because unclear expectations of our employees really can hurt performance. And a lot of times, we misconstrue what can be seen as laziness or procrastination and really just not having a clear picture or misunderstanding in the workplace. For those of you who have not joined me before, my name is Megan Wollerton, and I own Life Force Wellness, and I hold certifications as a personal trainer, health coach, corporate wellness specialist. But over the last several years, I've really gone hard into positive psychology, obtaining my positive psychology practitioner certification and my advanced certificate in change psychology. And I'm also certified in stress management, sleep, and recovery because let's face it, we could all use a little more help when it comes to managing stress and burnout, and we could all lead to sleep a little bit better. So, next week, the wellness webinar is going to be on if you want to change your health, change your sleep. So, for those that aren't regulars on these webinars, I do a webinar every week and they alternate between ones geared more towards leadership and ones that are more general wellness. So, this is part of our leadership series. Next week, we'll do a wellness webinar. You are welcome to come to as many as you want, they are free, held weekly. And, I hope that you get something good out of that. Now, today we're focused on that leadership and ambiguity. And I want you to just get yourself in the right mindset as we go through some of these things. And I want you to think about the last time you had to make your best guess at work. What was unclear? Was it, what do I prioritize? Like, which task do I do first? I don't know what is due first. I don't know what's most important. Is it, who owns this? Sometimes we blast out that email and there's three people copied on it, and we go, well, is this for me? Is this for them? Am I supposed to be working on this? How about just how to decide to get this done? What format do they want this done? Do they want 10 pages? Do they want me to narrow this down to one page? Do they want it in a specific font? Like, what exactly is going on here? And then lastly is, what is meant by done? Like, what is the finished product? What is the outcome we're hoping to achieve? And what I want you to recognize is that anytime those are unclear, which we've all experienced at some point in our careers, there's what's known as an ambiguity tax. Every unanswered question consumes our attention because we have to spend the time and the energy to try to interpret that work. So, the real hidden cost of those unclear expectations is this ambiguity tax. And so think about it. When you don't know those things, you're waiting for clarification. Maybe you have to send a follow up email and go, hey, can you clarify exactly what you want? And then there's that downtime of lost productivity where you're waiting for a response. Or maybe you took your best guess and you did the work, and then later someone came to you and said, that's not exactly what I wanted. Can you redo it? And now we're redoing the work. So we're doing the same task twice. Maybe we ourselves are second guessing our decisions. Like, we start to dive into something and we go, oh, this doesn't feel right. And we scrap it and we start over. Maybe it's searching for information. You feel like you only got half the information in this email. So now you're scrolling your inbox going like, was there another conversation about this that I need to be looking for? Or is there a format or a template somewhere that I need to dig up? Extra emails, the back and forth, follow up meetings. Can we meet on this again? Can you jump on another call? A lot of times there's also duplicate work when we don't know who owns it. Sometimes you'll have two employees working on the same task at the same time because it wasn't clear who owned it. And at the end of the day, it just leads to decision fatigue because the more decisions I have to make in interpreting your messaging, the more I get tired. That cognitive functioning actually starts to deplete, and it really reduces my work, especially leading into the end of the day. What's interesting is uncertainty does create a predictable performance cycle. And I'm sure this sounds familiar because we all do it. We have that uncertainty. We're given a task and we go, well, what does this mean? And we spend a little bit of time thinking about it. And then we try to interpret it, right? What do I think that they want? What is it that I think that they're asking me? And so then we have our own interpretation and we start to get to work, but maybe we hesitate, right? Maybe I should ask, or, I'll ask this question, or maybe I should wait until I see them when they walk down the hallway. And if our interpretation wasn't correct, then comes the rework. That's not quite what they went, or they need me to tweak this, or this wasn't quite right. And when you go through that cycle enough of uncertainty, interpretation, hesitation, and rework, and then you just get fed up with, like, I feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again because they're not being clear, we eventually withdraw, right? Like, I'm not doing this anymore. Sign someone else up for it, or we'll do like half. Like, I know this is what you want. I have no idea on the rest of it. So I'm going to turn in a half finished product because I'm done. I'm checking out. And when we get to that point, or when your employees get to that point, you may on the outside see it as a lack of caring. These employees, and I hear it from leaders, these employees, they just don't take initiative. They just don't seem to care. Is it that they don't care? Or is it that they're lacking clarity because you're not giving really good, detailed information of exactly what you want and they don't know? They don't have the work experience. Maybe they're new to the organization, they're new to that specific industry. And so, even if they have some experience, every company has their own way of doing things. And none of us really like to hear, what my old company, we did it this way, right? At our companies, we have a specific way of doing things. Have they learned that? Do they know all the details? And so ambiguity tends to hide in four unique places. This is where I see it show up the most. The first one is priority. So I have a coaching program called Optimize 60, and it's all about helping individuals become more productive versions of themselves. And at one of the weeks, I think it's like week 3 or week 4, we talk about prioritization. What is priority? And what's amazing to me is so many of my clients will go, well, I'm not sure because my boss just throws stuff at me all day, or people walk down the hall, or people pop into my office. And that's what's like really throwing me off is people come in. It's like they need this done now. They like hover over my desk and wait for me to do it. Meanwhile, I'm working on this thing that my boss sent me that he says he needs by noon. And so it's like now it's a struggle of like tug of war. Which one has priority? And sometimes they'll go, well, I'll just do these ones because I know I can bang them out in 15 minutes. And then I at least feel like I accomplished something. And while that's great and it's nice to be able to check that box, are you spending time on things that like didn't matter? And so the things that really did matter are now still sitting, not getting done. And a lot of this comes down from what I'm hearing communication from their leaders, because their leaders tend to flag everything is urgent or they're not giving specific deadlines. And so when everything is urgent, nothing really seems important. And so everything kind of gets put on the same level. And so work is not done in the order in which it probably should be. So as leaders, we need to make sure we're setting the priority. And it's very easy for us, and I've been guilty of it, that I'm so busy as a leader that I go to my assistant, I'm like, here, do this, here, do this, here, do this. And what's nice is I've at least trained up my assistant enough that she knows she can call me out and be like, girl, you just gave me 10 tasks. I have 2 hours left to my day. Which one do you really want me to do? And I go, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm just mindlessly throwing things at you because one, I trust you to get it done. And two, I'm not thinking and prioritizing. And she makes me step back and go, okay, what's actually important? I'll go, okay, these 3 things can wait. I don't even need them till next week. This one I really need done today. If you could do these 2 things tomorrow. And she's like, great. And she puts her little sticky notes on them and she gets to work. But I'm guilty of it too, that I just toss things at her and I'm not telling her what should be the number one priority right now. The second one is decisions. What can I decide without permission? Have you set those guide rails for your people? Because a lot of times I'll hear things like, well, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, or I'm not sure I can approve something at that value amount. I was just in a contract negotiation with a company and I was like, okay, well, I'll send you over the thing. And they went, well, pause. I can't sign off on that. I'm only allowed to sign up to this dollar amount, and that's over that threshold. I'm going to have to get my CEO involved. And I went, that's absolutely fine. But it was nice because he knew that cutoff. I'm allowed to approve up to this amount. After that, I have to have a conversation. But anything in that threshold, he knew he had permission to sign off on, write the check for, do what he needed to do. Have you set up those parameters for your people so that they can work without having to ask you for every little thing, right? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? Can I buy this? That throws a chink not only in their day, but also yours because you're being disrupted and constantly having to give them permission. The third one, ownership. Who is responsible and empowered? So I love this one because it's also about, who owns this. When we take a first aid or CPR class, one of the first things you learn in that class is to never just shout out, someone call 911. Because when you do that, everyone else in the room thinks somebody else is going to do it. And what they found, and we've studied this over and over and over again in social psychology, no one calls. That's why we are so taught in first aid and CPR to point and go, you call 911. You get the AED. You have to directly assign it to a person. Otherwise, everyone else is going to think somebody else is doing it, or you'll get the other side. Two people are doing the same task at the same time, and now you're losing productivity in your team because you only need one person on this task, and two people are wasting time doing it. So you need to be very clear about who is responsible and empowered. And that empowered is also important. If you are like me and you are a junkie for bar rescue with John Tapper, he has a saying about there being stupid visors. And these are people who have the supervisor title, but they don't have any of the permission. So go back to decisions or the responsibility to actually make the decisions that need to happen. Like they can't hire or fire anyone, they can't order things for the bar, they can't change the schedule. So not only do they need to know what decisions they can make, but they need to know who's responsible for making what decisions. So who's responsible and empowered and making sure it's clearly assigned. And then lastly, success. What does success look like? Because a lot of times we get work back and we're like, ugh, this isn't really what I pictured. And I've been there. I've worked for companies, they've asked me to do something, and I'm like, I have really no idea what this is, but I'm going to take a crack at it. And then I go back and they're like, no, this is totally not what I envisioned. Like maybe I over engineered it or I under engineered it. And I had to go back to the drawing board. So we really need to define what does success look like. I've had it at companies where a boss, when I was an assistant, sent me a form. And it was like, okay, do they just want me to fill out this form? Do they want me to fill it out and submit it? Do they want me to get over to accounts payable to get the check to? Am I sending this to the post office? Like, how far am I taking this task? Like, what is actually done in their mind? Is it fully to completion where I've got check in hand and I'm taking it to the mailbox, or do they just want me to fill out the form or get it started for them? That needs to be clearly defined. Otherwise, you're going to get half finished projects, or people are going to go way above and beyond what you wanted. And sometimes it's like, oh, but I wanted to attach something and you've already dropped it in the mailbox. So now we've got another issue. So we want to make sure that we're defining what that success is. So good leaders can create this confusion without even realizing it. The first one I already explained, it's when everything becomes a priority. When employees can't tell what should move and what should wait, that's going to interrupt productivity. The second thing that we do as leaders that we may not realize is that we change directions without context. We just go, hey, we're implementing this new system, get used to it. Or, hey, I want you to change how you're doing this. Or, hey, we're no longer using this vendor, change to this vendor. And in our psychology, we want to know why. And I understand there's kind of that knee jerk reaction of you don't need to understand why, but yet we all do it. I saw a really funny video I shared with my husband, and it's a husband and a wife talking. And he says one of his greatest fears is that we'll be in danger. And, he'll turn to his wife and say, get in the car, hurry. And she'll be like, why? And he's like, see, we're dead. Because you had to ask why. Couldn't just listen to me and get in the car. You had to go why? What's going on? That's our just human response. And so sometimes if you want people to get on board and just stay productive and stay with you, give them the context. Why? Hey, we're switching vendors. The other one started charging us too much. We found a better one. Hey, we're switching software. This one's going to be easier to use once we get it established. That's all it takes. An extra sentence as to why helps people to just really get on board and keeps them consistent. The next one is when tasks are delegated without authority, so that ownership isn't assigned or the decisions remain trapped. So maybe it's okay, John knows he's responsible for this, but he doesn't have that permission structure. So again, it comes back to that like John Tapper of like stupid advisor, right? He knows he's responsible, but he doesn't have the authority to sign off on things. That's still trapped. So making sure that we're giving both of those things when we are assigning tasks. And then the one that I see a lot is when leaders will throw something at somebody and in the name of autonomy say like take your best guess, use your best judgment, I want to see what you can do with it. And there are times when you want to take something to your team and say this is a chance for you to be creative, this is a chance for you to shine, this is a chance for you to take initiative, but they still need to know what's the end game. What is success? What are you envisioning to have be the final product at the end of this? Because if there is too much guessing and there's almost too much autonomy, that's going to lead to decision fatigue and them second guessing themselves. And it's actually going to slow the process down. They need some level of guide rails. You can't just go like, here's the world, have at it. We have a very real problem that has been studied, especially in the United States. We have too many options. Too many options is almost just as bad as not having any options. We get so overwhelmed. You ever walk down the cereal aisle and just like you're like, I can't, we're skipping cereal because you don't even want to look at all the boxes. There's too many decisions to make, or you just go back to the classic of whatever you always get. You're not going to try something new because you don't even want to sit there and try to decide between all the options. So sometimes when we are too vague and too open, in the kind of looking to give them some kind of autonomy, we can actually create a problem very similarly to when they don't have autonomy. The brain just cannot function with that much of an open space to work with. So they need guide rails. What is the defined product? Is there certain parameters they should stay in? Making sure those are clear. Now, you can't always remove uncertainty from the workplace. I mean, there's always going to be something that's not sure. There are things that are in flux and always changing. But what we want to focus on is what can we reduce the unnecessary uncertainty? What are those things that are inside our control that we can focus on to give more clarity to? So some of these things that are like false clarity, if we pretend like all the answers are known, that's not helping anybody. A lot of times as leaders, we tend to overpromise and we're not really staying in alignment with our SMART goals. So, are they measurable? Are they achievable, realistic, and timely? I used to have a boss, and he really wanted to grow his business, and he was just a go getter, and he was a great salesman, but he would sell stuff and then come back and be on me to figure out how to make it happen. And I'm sitting there going like, but it's not realistic to get it done in the time that you promised. You have overpromised on what our capacity is. And it would be like on me to try to figure it out. And so now I'm wasting how many hours of my day? I still have other business to run, but now I've got to figure out how to solve this problem because my boss has overpromised on a service and I got to figure out how to deliver. So when we overpromise, we're creating unnecessary uncertainty because we've got to solve that problem and spend the time to do it. The other thing is we don't want to go too far the other way and start micromanaging every step. We don't want to be like, well, I don't want there to be any uncertainty, so I'm going to make sure every step of the process is clearly defined and written out for you. We still want to give some autonomy. We don't want to over micromanage every step. We just want to be clear. And then avoiding honest questions. And this is a hard one for some people. When you give instructions, you want to get feedback. Was I clear with what I told you? Can you tell me what you heard? Sometimes what you hear back is not in alignment, and it's really easy for you to get frustrated because you think you're being clear, but that other person, their brain just might be wired a little bit different and they're not quite picking it up, and you need to explain it a different way. As leaders, we need to make sure that we remain calm and not offended when they don't understand. We just think differently. I'm a people person. I love psychology and sociology and wellness. My husband is an IT guy, very analytical, likes AI and computers and dealing with data and numbers, and everything is very black and white and logical for him. People are very illogical. And so sometimes we have a conversation and we've learned like, I have to put this into a language he understands, or he needs to put something into a language I understand. And so we've learned how to communicate. Sometimes with your employees, it's the same way. You need to understand how they think so that you can give instructions in a way that they understand and not be offended when they don't quite get it the first time. Useful clarity is, naming what is known, what is unknown. Just be honest. This is a piece of the puzzle that's really not known that we got to figure out together. And then what's the next step? So, first and foremost, give that context, the why, because that's the first knee jerk reaction your employee's going to have is, hey, I need you to do this. Why? Why am I doing this? Why does this matter? Purpose matters in business. People like to know that what they're doing has a purpose and they're not just doing it in the namesake of wasting time and doing it. Define the boundaries, and those may shift from day to day. Maybe something changed with the budget, maybe something changed with the client or the project or the vendor. What are the boundaries for today? Don't assume that yesterday's boundaries apply to today, especially if there's been any changes. So make sure that you're reiterating those. And then set a checkpoint. When are you going to check in with each other to make sure we're still on the same page and that we're going in the right direction? You can do this by following the 5 C's framework. So, if you want to make sure that the instructions you're giving are clear, follow the 5 C's. First, context. Why does this matter? Second, commitment. What must happen? Then, constraints. What's fixed? What's flexible? Where do they have autonomy? Where don't they have autonomy? Checkpoints. When are we going to reconnect? And then confirm. Ask them what they heard. So if you've ever taken an active listening class like I have with all my coaching, I'll listen to a client's problems and then I go, okay, so what I think I understood was, or what I think I hear you saying is, or what I'm understanding the problem to be. You want to try to get that out of your employee. Can you repeat back to me what you heard? Can you summarize the task I just gave you? Make sure that when they summarize it back to you, it's correct. And sometimes they'll summarize it back to you and be like, oh, that's not quite right. I need this, or I need it to be that, or I need it delivered on this time. That's going to be super helpful in making sure there's not those misunderstandings. And it only takes a second to get that out of people. So clarity is not necessarily about communicating more. I'm not asking you to share, 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 share. It's just giving the right information at the right time. And so the 5 questions that are going to help you the best to make sure that we're avoiding the guessing. For context, why does this matter now? Commitment, what outcome are we committing to? Constraints, what is fixed and what can you decide? Checkpoints, when will we review progress? And then confirm, are you taking away the priorities and the next steps? What are you taking away? So those are the 5 questions you want to make sure that when you're giving your directive, you're answering those. So what this looks like in practice, sometimes we will go by to an employee and go, hey, can you pull together that client update? I need it soon. Make sure it looks good. Sounds like a direction I've heard in the workplace. Hey, I need you to update this. I've got a meeting tomorrow. I need it to look good. The problem is the employee must invent the deadline. Soon and tomorrow, like what time tomorrow? What do you mean by soon? The audience, who's all coming with the client? Or is it the big decision makers? Does it matter? What's the format? How much information? Okay, you want me to pull a client update. How much information do you want me to update them on? Like, do you want me to tell them about that little hiccup we had yesterday? Or like, you want me to leave that off the record? Is there a standard template for this? Like, is there a specific way we've been delivering these reports in the past that I should follow? Those are things that are still very ambiguous. So even though it sounds like you're giving a good directive, pull the client update, I need it soon, make sure it looks good, may not mean anything to that employee, especially given how long they may have worked with you. So something that's more clear. I am meeting with the client at 3 p.m. on Thursday. Please draft a one-page update for the client that leads with progress, risks, and next decisions. Use last month's format. Send me a draft by Wednesday at noon. Can you summarize the task, please? Let me just understand you heard that correctly. So now we have the initiative to take a safe place, and you can see where these 5 C's show up. So why does this matter? I'm meeting with the client at 3 p.m. on Thursday, so this matters. The commitment, I need a one-page update for the client that leads with progress, risks, and next decisions. What's the constraints? What's fixed? I want you to use the same format that we used last month. What are the checkpoints? I need a draft on Wednesday at noon and then confirm. Can you summarize that task assigned, please? Just read it back to me. There's the 5 C's. It takes a little bit more language, but it's clear and that person can get right to work. They're going to pull up last month's report and they're going to see how you format it, what kind of information was on it, and they can dig in and get to work without having to ask all those questions that they had with just I need a client update. So what I want you to do is really think about one request you've made or received this week and ask yourself, did you answer these 5 questions? I would challenge you to actually write out a sentence, even right now, on why it matters, what the outcome is that's required, what's fixed and flexible, when do you plan to reconnect, and just end with asking them, can you summarize, can you read that back to me? Can you summarize this back to me? Can you tell me that you understand? You understand what the assignment is. So I want you to actually put that into practice with an assignment you had. And if you want, you can put it in the chat or you can just write it down on a piece of paper while we're here. While you're working on that, I want you to understand that there will be times when clarity breaks down. And when that happens, it's important that we don't assign blame. It's not necessarily the employee's fault or your fault that we just weren't on the same page. Again, sometimes we might explain something and it just doesn't click with them. We need to just take a step back and go, hey, I think we might be working from different expectations. Hey, I think there was a misunderstanding between us. Hey, I think maybe something wasn't made clear. Not you screwed this up, you didn't do what I asked, I didn't explain this right. You don't have to actually point blame. Just, hey, we're not on the same page. Then reset. This is what's most important. This is the outcome I'm looking for. Then set the boundaries. You can decide these things, but check with me before you add this or you do that. And then reconnect. Let's review a draft together on this day. This is when I want to check back in. Let's have a meeting on Friday just to make sure we're on track again. That's all it takes. Do not think about pointing the finger. I know when things aren't delivered as a leader, you're busy and you think your employee has it and then they throw this on your desk and it's just not what you expected. It's so easy to be like, what the heck is this? Are you even listening? And to get really frustrated and have those teachable moments, we'll say. This is a great way to just communicate it without assigning blame. So your clarity challenge for the next 24 hours is to pick one of those 4 areas where these tend to show up and help your employees. Pick a person, pick the conversation, and give yourself the challenge of when you're going to have this conversation. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to re-rank their competing priorities? Are you going to sit down and go, hey, I threw a lot at you this week. Let's sit down and re-rank what's priority. Let's maybe pull our whole team in. Let's really define who's working on what and make sure we know who's owning the decisions. Let's look at what the outcomes should be. What does done look like? And if we need to, let's schedule earlier check-ins. Maybe right now you're in the middle of a project. You're like, maybe it is time for a check-in and you need to schedule that. Pick one of those. And I challenge you to really try to just help your employees by giving them that clarity that they need. The bottom line is people perform better when they do not have to guess what success requires. We want to create clarity so that we can preserve that ownership. And then ultimately, this is going to strengthen trust. Your people know they can come to you. They're going to get real, clear, honest answers. And that helps to boost trust in the workplace, which also feeds into all the psychological safety we've talked about over the last few weeks and just creates a much better work environment overall. I know this was a lot of information, but I only have 30 minutes to teach it. But if you want to go deeper or you want to learn more, you are more than welcome to book a call. We did fix our QR code from the last session. I present things like this to organizations, individuals. I offer coaching and workshops like this. So if you want to host a leadership training or an employee training around any of these topics, stress, burnout, productivity, please let me know. Feel free to book a call with me. Or if you have a question that you don't feel comfortable putting in the chat, I'm happy to jump on a call and have kind of a more private one on one conversation. If this was something you enjoyed, again, I offer leadership workshops every other week in between our wellness workshops. The next leadership workshop is going to be Thursday, August 13th. It's going to be Nice Isn't Leadership: How Avoiding Difficult Conversations Hurt Your Team. Some of us don't like to hurt feelings. We don't like to have the hard conversation. We don't want to drum up conflict in the workplace. So if that's you, and you want to figure out how can you have the hard conversations without ruining maybe a relationship you have with that employee, that's going to be a great webinar for you. At this time, I'm going to check the chat for any questions. You're welcome to unmute and ask any questions. If you want to connect one-on-one, my consult call link is there, as well as my email. If there are no more questions, then I will let you guys get back to work. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next webinar. Thank you so much.